Hi everybody, my name is Chloe. In this Ocean Wonders video, we're going to be talking about the incredible polar bear. So what is a polar bear? Well, it is an animal that is a vertebrate, meaning it has a backbone, and it's also a mammal. Do you know what a mammal is? Okay, so an animal that is a mammal has a couple of different characteristics. It is an animal that when it is a baby, it is fed by its mother's milk. It is warm-blooded. It has a well developed brain and it has hair or fur. So, an example of different mammals would be kangaroos, dogs, cats, monkeys, and even humans are mammals. Now, this mammal, the polar bear, is semi aquatic, meaning that it lives both on land and in water. It is the largest type of bear, so there are 8 different types of bears around the world. Do you know any different types of bears? I'm sure you do. So think of the black bear, the brown bear, the panda bear. They're all different types of bears. Now, polar bears are the largest of all bears. So they can measure about 2.5 meters long and up to 800 kilograms in weight. That's very heavy. Polar bears are the largest carnivore that lives on land. So a carnivore means that they eat meat. What do polar bears look like? Well, they're big bears that are covered in what appears to be white fur. They have a thick layer of fur. They have 4 legs, large feet, and relatively small ears compared to other bears. Now, the reasons why they look like this is because they are adapted to live in a cold environment, which we'll talk about more in a minute. Polar bears are found in the Arctic Circle. So, this is in the northern hemisphere in countries like Canada, Alaska, Greenland, Russia, and Norway. So, polar bears generally live in coastal areas where the land meets the sea and where there's lots of sea ice, which they need to use for hunting. They thrive in an Arctic world where there's lots of snow and lots of ice, and the temperatures are really cold. We're talking about temperatures of about minus 50 degrees centigrade. So, that's about twice as cold as an average freezer. In Ireland, when there's ice on the roads and there's a bit of snow on the footpaths, we might get down to temperatures of about minus 3, 4, 5 degrees, but polar bears regularly experience temperatures of minus 50 degrees. So, as I said, polar bears have lots of adaptations to the cold. Now, lots of animals have adaptations to where they live. This means that their body has changed over time to allow them to be very comfortable in the place that they live. So, polar bears are comfortable living in a very snowy, cold, icy environment because their body has changed over time. So, they have this thick layer of fur. So they actually have 2 layers of fur. They have a short, thick layer, and then they have a longer layer of hollow tubes of hair. These hollow tubes can actually trap air and heat up the polar bear even more. These hollow tubes also help polar bears to swim, so it helps them to float. Polar bears also have black skin under their fur. And people used to think that the black skin would allow the polar bears to soak up heat from the sun better, but scientists have actually disproved this. Polar bears have a nice thick layer of fat as well. This is called blubber, and this keeps their bodies nice and warm when they're in the freezing cold air and also when they're swimming in the really icy water. They also have much smaller ears compared to other bears. So, if you look at a panda bear or a grizzly bear, polar bears actually have much smaller ears on top of their head. And this is to reduce heat loss out of the top of their head. If polar bears had bigger ears, they'd be more likely to get frostbite in their ears. So, smaller ears are better in these icy conditions. Polar bears are carnivores, meaning that they are meat eaters. They eat other animals. Now, they can hunt in the water, but they mostly prefer to hunt from sea ice. Seals are their favorite food. So they like to eat ringed seals and hooded seals, but they also eat harp seals and bearded seals as well. Sometimes they've been known to eat other marine mammals like walruses, narwhals, and beluga whales. And they've also been seen to scavenge on marine mammal carcasses. So, scavenge means that they haven't killed the animal, they'll come across a dead animal and they'll eat that as well. They've actually also been seen to hunt on fish and birds as well. This is at a time where seals might be scarce and hard to come by. They have an incredible sense of smell that they can use to track their prey, and polar bears have been known to track seals from 16 kilometers away using just their sense of smell, which is amazing. Polar bears like to use the element of surprise when they hunt. So, what they like to do is to stand or lie on top of the sea ice, wait for a seal to come up to the top of the water to take a breath, and then that they will launch themselves on top of the seal to capture it and to eat it. Although they are big animals, polar bears are excellent swimmers. They can swim really long distances from one piece of ice to another, and they've even been spotted 100 kilometers away from land out at sea. They swim by paddling through the water with their large front paws, and then they sort of hold their back legs flat like a rudder, which can steer them. They swim a lot in the summer when the ice and snow have melted and they're trying to avoid the rocky shores. And in the summer, they travel between islands or pieces of ice. In the winter, they tend to swim a little bit less. Do polar bears hibernate? Well, first of all, what is hibernation? Hibernation is a way for many creatures to survive cold and dark winters. Instead of having to go out and look for food or having to migrate or move to warmer climate, many animals park themselves into a nice, warm, dark cave and they fall asleep for the winter and they turn the dial down their metabolism so that they can save energy. Well, polar bears don't do this. Now, most of the other bear species do, but polar bears don't. They are most active in the cold, dark winter, so they don't need to go into hiding for the winter. Polar bears like the ice, they like the cold, they need the sea ice to hunt for seals, so they're usually most active in the winter. Baby polar bears are called cubs. When they're born, the cubs are really small, they're only about the size of guinea pigs. They're so cute. When the mummy polar bear is pregnant, she builds a house, kind of like a maternity den, out of snow to give birth in. And this snow den protects her young family. The den is just about large enough for the mummy polar bear to climb into. And then she uses the snowfall to sort of close over the den and hide her in it for the winter. The cubs are usually born in the winter around December, and there could be one, two, or three cubs born at any one time. But usually, polar bears have twins. The family remains in the den all winter and until spring, and then the cubs come out and they eat as much as they can in the spring, the summer, and the autumn. And they stay with their mum for about 2 years, and this is when they learn all the skills that they need to know how to survive the harsh life in the Arctic. Unfortunately, polar bears have been listed as vulnerable animals. This means that populations around the world are decreasing, they're declining. This has been linked to climate change. So, a rise in our global temperatures has resulted in a decreased amount of sea ice. So, the warmer our ocean becomes, the less sea ice we have. And we've already learned that sea ice is really important to polar bears, particularly for when they're hunting. When they're trying to catch seals, they need the sea ice to hunt from. If polar bears don't have their sea ice, it means that they are going to have to travel further in the water and use up more of their energy to try and travel to the next bit of sea ice. So they'll have to swim further, but it also means that they're more likely to spend more time on land. This can cause an increase in the number of bear and human interactions, which is a safety concern for both humans and bears. But it's also bad for bears because they're more likely to come across pollution on land and to change their diet to more land based foods. It also means that there's more interaction between polar bears and other species of bears. Scientists have confirmed the existence of a hybrid bear. This is a mixture of a polar bear and a grizzly bear. They've sometimes been known as growler bears or pizzly bears, and scientists believe that these are a result of climate change. So, due to warmer temperatures and vegetation growth, these two species of bear have become more in contact than they ever have before. So, there are only 8 known examples of these types of bears around the world. So, this makes this phenomenon extremely rare. How can we protect polar bears? Well, the first thing we need to do is take action against climate change. Now, how do we do that? Well, remember all the small things that you've learnt in your Green Schools journey. The first thing we're going to think about is saving energy. So, if you're walking out of a room, turn the light off. Don't unnecessarily charge your gadgets. And another easy change is to walk or scoot to school if you can. Now, remember the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. So, we want to try and cut down the amount of waste that we are generating. Unfortunately, scientists have found little particles of plastic in the Arctic sea ice. So, we want to try and reduce the amount of plastics that are entering the oceans. We want to just try and reduce the amount of waste that we're creating. So, you can reduce the amount of waste, you can reuse some items, so you can try to buy previously worn clothing or previously used clothing. Think about sustainable fashion. And then we also want to recycle as much waste as we can. So, our paper, our plastics, our glass, our aluminiums. We want to try and reduce the amount of waste that we are generating. Next up is we want you to educate yourself and others. So, learn what climate change is, how it's impacting our planet, and what we can do to change it. And then educate others. Tell your parents, talk about it to your friends, talk about it in class, because together we can build a brighter future for us, for our planet, and for polar bears. Now, that's all from me. I want to thank you for listening, and I hope you've learned lots of interesting facts about polar bears.